on. So, hey,
This article put down. I don't know whether the quality is going to be good, right? Like this. Can you put it
I
like
should.
this?
Oh no, it's falling down. I
Down.
think.
Maybe
Okay,
collar.
put this and clip the
Yeah, whatever, so that it stays up basically.
like this, but it looks weird.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it's fine.
Cool.
Ram should.
Nice.
It's here. Okay, shall we start?
Yeah.
You just give me inform me every 5 minutes so that I know. So, hey guys, thanks for coming to Vatsal's talk and staying longer. So I'll give you a quick overview of um, what I mean by post AGI economics. First of all, I'm not an economist. I'm just interested in learning these things, and I hope others are also very interested because um, we are all curious about how is the world progressing, and there's a lot of hype, and we don't know what is true and what is not. So this is my uh, like exploration on what economics says about um, productivity, wages, and how the future is going to unfold as we see AGI very nearby. So my motivations, understanding economic arguments, make better decisions. We all have to make decisions. Even if you don't understand these concepts, we are making decisions about our future and not falling for hype. We hear a lot of tweets, news on this will happen, or some if we lose jobs, the new jobs will be created. What is true, what is not. So how do we understand them? And most importantly, it's not definitive. This is a start. There's a lot of articles, a lot of workshops happening on economists studying about it. So it's a very evolving field. So what I'm giving here is more like a basics that I've understood. Yeah. So what is post-AGI economics? So imagine a world where uh, we see abundant compute and um, systems of software which can substitute human labor. And when that happens, how are wages, or how is our economy going to function? So that is primarily what economists ask when they talk about post-AGI economics. So we'll look at few key points. So what is the capability? Which tasks become more automatable, and what is the scale? One important thing with software, it's easy to replicate. If you have machines or other hardware, creating a copy of it is harder. But with AI, you can just with the internet, it just scales. And yeah, so so this is a summary of what I'm going to cover. First we start with what are the key points that matter, and then in the end we'll see how those key points come together and affect ownership and compounding. Who owns most of the value, and what affects compound. So a simple model, let's abstract all the things out. There's too much jargon. So imagine you have a lemonade factory. You're just making you're making lemonades, and the inputs are you have lemon, water, sugar, and packaging, and the output is you make the lemonade and you sell it to customers. So this is the setup that we have. So as you can see, there are so right now we have a lot of technology, but imagine this is ancient times where you actually have to go and buy lemons and water and sugar, and you need to put some labor, someone has to cut and do stuff, and you make the lemonade and you sell it. So in this world, if you don't have lemons, you can't make even if you have a lot of sugar, if you have a lot of water, not having lemons, you're just stuck. So that is what people call something called complementarity. You imagine a shoe, right? Left and right shoe, they're complement to each other. So in the same way, for producing certain items, you can't make the final item unless you have all the ingredients. So that's that's what economists call complementarity. And I'll explain why complementarity is important. So these are the points that I said. Like if you don't have lemons, nothing's going to happen. And complementarity creates bottlenecks. So if let's say suddenly there's like a huge drought and lemons are not being produced or whatever, now having more sugar or having more water won't help in making the lemonade. So the lemon is a scarce resource, and now you will pay a lot to just get whatever lemon you can, because only that will allow you to make the lemonade. So the next key point is something called substitution. Imagine now, so how can you now, like let's say technology has developed. So can someone give an idea of like how you would replace, like is something replaceable when you're making this lemonade? Any guesses?
Okay,
Yeah.
lemon flavored something substitute, right?
Huh.
Like how sugar substitute is there?
Yeah, you can make an extract. So, but then the thing is, most important thing is you should not compromise on quality. Like, if I give you two glasses, you shouldn't be able to know which one is the actual lemons and which one is the extract. And if you're able to do that, and the extract is cheap, then you would just substitute actual lemon with the lemon extract. And so that is exactly what substitution is. So earlier we talked about complementarities, where you actually need the ingredient to make the output, but in substitution you can swap out the components. So in this case, instead of the lemons, you can make a lemon juice concentrate.
Lemon juice concentrate also needs lemon.
But imagine like so when you had like an abundance, you made the concentrate and stored it, and it's preserved. Like, yes, it's not like a direct analogy, but assume you have a concentrate available, and when you're not affected by getting physical lemons. So yeah, when one gets cheaper, like suppose you can get extracts cheaper, then you would swap out the lemons and just use the concentrate. So that is substitution. And this, I'll skip these ones, but yeah, you can kind of visualize what I told in this diagram, where so in complements you need all the three. So you need water, sugar, and lemon, and they go to make the lemonade. But in substitutes, you can, like, even if you don't have the real lemons, you can get the concentrate and you can make the lemonade. So in a way, you have like a extra path to get your final outcome. So
Can you please go back? Yeah.
it's so any doubts till now, like. Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of going fast because we don't have. Oh, it's yeah. So now, yeah, this is, there are two worlds. Like in one world, you need lemons, and lemons are the bottleneck. But imagine you have the concentrate. In that case, no matter if you have the physical lemons or not, you can swap out with the concentrates and still work. So these are the two main worlds that economists like think about. And so this was an analogy for something else. So you can think of the physical lemons as like labor, and the concentrate as like capital. So capital here, what economists call is like physical or non-human items which can still produce your output. So in factories, machines, raw materials, like material items which are needed to produce some final artifact. So that is capital. So in the analogy that I mentioned, your lemons would be the labor. So and the concentrates can be like human labor. So yeah, labor is like human. Like so, right now I still haven't talked about AI because like that will confuse things. So till now, let's just focus on like 1900s. There's like no AI. Just you have factories producing items. So in a complementary world, like labor is the bottleneck. So even if you have like a lot of capital, you can't produce things unless you get more labor. But in substitutes world, even if you have like less labor, you can bypass it by putting a lot of capital. So can someone like give an example of like some scenario like like and say like what would be an example of complement versus substitutes? Like can you think of an example?
mathematical calculations
Hmm.
previously required human beings. The computers were human beings, right? Before
Hmm.
in the past, and they were physically sitting there and
Yeah.
doing that, punching cards and all that kind of stuff. That was a bottleneck because we needed humans.
Hmm.
Then once we automated that,
Hmm.
some innovation happened and we led to. So that was substitute.
But what is the final output? Like, what are we making in that case?
What are we making?
Yeah.
We are doing computation faster to make because that
For
was one
getting-
in the middle
Okay.
to produce whatever
Yeah.
it was that we were producing. And
So
now
let's
we
say
have
it's like an accounting business.
accounting business.
So let's say they have to produce like 10 reports.
Right.
Earlier, I mean, or let's say with humans, they're producing 10 reports. Now with computers, they can increase it by 100. Yeah. So in that scenario, like labor was the bottleneck, but once, these are for task specific, like, or this is not for like the entire business. These can be like, okay, maybe there's like one output that I'm making, and in that output, suddenly, like you can bypass it with capital, and in that case, you like labor is not a bottleneck. You can just put a lot of capital and get more output. So that's why this is like imagine it's like a water supply, right? Like you have pipes, and like you like what certain businesses or production either function like complements. Like to actually get your output, your capital and labor can be like two pipes connected in series, and the bottleneck is labor. So even if you put like a lot of capital, you just can't get like more output out of it. But in certain tasks can be more like parallel, where if you have like a lot of capital, you can bypass it and you can produce more. So one example that makes sense for me is like, imagine you have a barber shop. Like, so no matter like how many chairs or like how many scissors or anything or other instruments you buy, you need to get those many barbers. Like, no matter, let's say I just employ 5 barbers, but I invest like 10 or lakhs or something, just in terms of equipment and whatever. It's not going to increase my value of the business. I mean, it will increase. I can charge more, but that will be less compared to just hiring one more barber. So in that case, it's more complement. Like, to put my capital to good use, I need to hire one more barber. I can't like automate it away. But for instance, let's say I have a warehouse, and instead of employing people, I buy a forklift. So, and the forklift does more as much as like 2 of my employees, and it costs less. Then in that scenario, I can invest my money in getting those forklifts and get more output. So
Amazon has been doing that. Right?
yeah, exactly. So what I'm trying to say is like, depending on the tasks or which business, technology can either put you in this world or this world, and it's very and your outputs or how the economy behaves depends on which world we live in. So that's the key point. Yeah, this I've covered, and yeah, now that's one side of the story. The other side is something called elasticity. So when you think of elasticity, right, like let's say you have a rubber band, you can have like a tight rubber band or like a more loose rubber band, and the reason elasticity matters is like when some event happens, let's say there's a price drop, if your output is less elastic, then for the same price drop, your output doesn't change much. It's so imagine it's a stiff rubber band. So just with a small price drop, you're not getting that much of a change. But uh, if you have your output to be more elastic, then with just a small change in your price, the output changes like a lot.
Example of this would be
So yeah, I'll come next. Like, so imagine you, oh hi, imagine you have, imagine like the cost of fuel, right? So right now, let's say you consume 3 liters per week, and let's say next week fuel is going to drop by, let's say, 10 rupees per liter or something. What would happen? Like, would you still consume 3 liters, or like how would you react to that price drop? Or let's say you're using AI and you're you're paying for tokens, and suddenly like it gets cheap. So now, how would you react to that cheapness? Like, would you like?
There will be a big response.
Yeah, but would so you, the argument can be made that okay, if I'm a petrol company, let's take the fuel example. Let's not bring AI. So if I'm selling petrol, uh, if petrol is cheaper, the argument can be made that oh, okay, my revenue is going to go down because everyone's going to use the same, and since it's cheaper, it will drop. But that is not factoring in this elasticity. It's assuming we are in this low elastic world where okay, small price drop, but still people are going to use the same way. But usually, what happens is like when the price drops, people will start using things more. So, for instance, energy is also like linked to other events, right? Like so, for instance, let's say if price of flight drops, instead of 5,000, it becomes 2,000. So suddenly, a lot of people will be flying more. So in that case, what it says is that demand is elastic to price. So for this same drop in price, the demand increases a lot. So it can be a bit counterintuitive. Like you might think if the price of something drops, I might lose money, but that's not factoring in how the demand scales. If the demand is more elastic, then you might end up with like more usage than um, like before when the price was like not dropping. So I'll show like a more technical way of explaining in the next thing. But how much time do we?
8 minutes left.
Yeah, I think this one I'll skip. Like, so now I want to combine the previous, yeah, this one substitutes and elasticity. So, what economists something called elasticity of substitution in the sense, okay, if I substitute, if I could substitute labor with capital, how will my response be like to my business? Is it elastic or not? And that is like the very key variable that people look at to predict what worlds we'll end up in. And let's skip this. Yeah, if it is low substitutability, this is that Barber's world where um, you can add a lot of capital to it, but it's not going to move the needle much because the bottleneck there is labor. But if you're in a more substitutable world, high substitutability, then adding a bit of capital can convert that capital to useful labor. So those are the two regimes.
The larger assumption here is that we are working in a system where growth is the main incentive from promoting.
Yeah, yeah.
There is an incentive structure where
Yeah, you need to growing high.
is the
Yeah,
main goal.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Just
Okay,
want to clarify
yeah,
that.
yeah. This I'll
In
skip.
evolution, you don't necessarily have that.
I think we'll take it later. Yeah. So yeah, now I'll come to this concept called Jevon's paradox, which I kind of touched up earlier. Where so what this person like Jevon's saw was basically the elasticity, where when something gets cheaper, you might assume the revenue will fall. Like so, for instance, when DeepSeek got released, there was this huge thing that oh the prices of running LLMs is small, so all the revenues will fall. But what ended up happening is like people, like the demand was more so elastic that since it's so cheap, people started using it for a lot. So imagine like now, for a lot of use cases, you would not use, which you initially weren't thinking of using it, you would start using it because something is cheap, and because of that, you have like a huge demand and like your revenue actually goes high even if something is cheap. So that is so in this case, when the demand is elastic, then you owning that scalable resource gives you more return because you can scale it a lot and not be bottlenecked by the labor. And the opposite of this is something called Baumol's cost disease. So imagine like so there are certain professions which no matter how technology progresses, they can't really be more effective, right? For instance, let's say opera singers uh, or artists, like, yeah, okay, some music industry, some technology improves, but still they're going to produce the same number of operas, like, but still their wages keep increasing no matter how technology improves. So this is a phenomenon which is seen where even though like technology improves in like certain areas, um, there can be certain other um, jobs where the wages will also keep increasing because um, like because you can't automate them. It's not, yeah, in that case you can't substitute it, and also I'll explain like why that happens. So usually, like, let's say right now tech has like a high wage, right? Like if you're in tech you pay a lot, but which means that like in tech, uh, like labor is like much more valuable. Like you need to get people to work in tech, and then you can unlock like the return on the capital. But if the wages increase in those areas, and let's say I'm a opera singer or like an artist, then I might also be like, hey, my field is not paying a lot, so I'll go and do tech. So to prevent, but still you need some people to keep playing opera and stuff. So so even if wages increase in other areas, these low productivity areas will also increase in their wages to keep up with the increase in wages in other areas. But it won't be like proportional. Obviously, it will be less. But just because, uh, like, just because tech doesn't automate some areas doesn't mean their wages will remain the same. So this is what like is documented in Baumol's cost disease, where even if you have a very low productivity domain, their wages can still keep increasing. So this is sometimes used to say like even when AI automates a lot, there'll be certain areas whose wages will keep increasing. Yeah, sorry, you had some disease in sense it's like it spreads uh, to areas which are like low productivity. It's like it can't because it's not keeping up with the technological improvement, right? It's something which is stagnant, so it's called a disease. Yeah, but I can, yeah.
Low productivity, that's how can you compare something like I'm just taking opera and tech? You can't say opera is like low productivity because
No, I mean it's not low productivity. It's like tech can't improve its.
like those niche areas where tech is definitely not going to help.
Yeah, exactly. It's the growth in its productivity is not keeping up pace with what you see in other areas. Yeah. So it's about like how much the improvements in technology can give you better returns. Yeah, for that. Yeah, I'll skip this. Yeah, so how does it map to AI? Like we might, so there's this concept called jaggedness where, so right now like we can see that AI helps in some domains but not in others, and it's not clear like which domains they're good. Like there's some guesses on it, but everyone is like surprised every few years that people claim AI can't improve in some domain, but it gets much better. So if so, the areas which are substitutable a lot, we will see like Jevon's like scaling where like even though the price of that task reduces, if there's like a lot of demand, the usage will go up a lot. For instance, like the cost to make software is going down, but there's so much demand for software that even if costs go down, it's you're going to see like so much software getting produced, and there can be Baumol like bottlenecks. So yeah, AI right now is probably not good in literature, let's say. Then yeah, sports. Then in those areas, even if yeah, the tech is not directly helping, but as long as people have demand for those fields, their wages will also increase. So so you can see both of these patterns happening as AI progresses. So there is this economist called Piketty, and like he wrote a paper called "Capital in the 21st Century," and there was another blog post called "Capital in 22nd Century," which is what I based some of the slides on. And so what this person says is that like so if substitution is most possible, then the return on your capital is going to be high. So let's say I just inherit a lot of land and I just like renting it away versus me just going to a job. So if so his prediction was like if we live in a more substitutable world, then you shouldn't sell your capital. The return on your capital is going to be much higher than you going and working and getting an income. But it turned out that the prediction that he made earlier was wrong because we were not in a substitution world. We were in a complementary world. So see, he released in like I think 1990s, like industrial, like so the till before AI came into picture, we were primarily in a complementary world.
He must have said.
But he thought we were in a substitution world. So his argument was, okay, if we are in substitution world, just the returns on your capital is going to be much larger than return on your income or the rate at which your income grows. But it was wrong because we were not in a substitution world. But now what we're seeing is like with AI, we are entering a lot. Like it seems like more and more tasks are substitutable than complementary. So yeah, 20. Oh, he wrote it on 2013. Yeah, 2013 he wrote the thing, but I think his data was on older. Yeah. So so if you start saving more and just have your capital and like just allow it to grow at a certain rate, because the core argument is if things are substitutable, then you just have your capital and put it in a business, and that will get you more return than getting wages. So in a high substitution world, which we might be entering, just inheriting wealth and putting the wealth to use is going to be like, it will give you higher returns rather than getting an income. And yeah, this is the counter story. But
What was the counter story?
so the counter story was like, if it was a complementary world, then okay, let's say I just have a lot of capital. Like I just like inherit a lot of capital, but then the issue is that so imagine like you need both the machine and the workers. So I just produce like a lot of hammers or machines, but you don't have enough workers. So then what happens is like all this capital, the value that you get in just having that capital is going to go low, like unless you actually put it and hire more people. So there's like a self-correcting behavior where if you accumulate a lot of capital, unless you transfer that capital and put it to wages, your return on that capital is going to be like less. So so that was a self-correcting mechanism. So so there was no incentive for you to just keep on accumulating capital, because a lot of the jobs or like a lot of the production was complementary. Like after a point, capital becomes a labor becomes a bottleneck.
Yeah.
So there'll be a transfer of wealth from capital to wages. So
Yeah, got it.
so in that case, so that's why like there's less incentive for you to just keep capital. At some point, you have to redistribute and pay wages.
We're
But
out of time. Just let me.
yeah, and I'll just finish like so yeah, this is the why it was self-correcting, and yeah, this is like a example. Uh, so this is like what would happen if we have substitutes versus complements. For now, like this is the negative self-correcting thing I said, right? Like where you have you accumulate a lot of capital, but then there's like diminishing returns. Like you need more labor to actually use the capital, and then your interest rate is basically what is the return on your capital if you just leave the capital asset. So in that case, then after a point, you'll have to transfer that capital and give it as wages, and then the capital share falls. And so the rich, even here there is inequality. It's not saying there is less inequality, but then it's not runaway inequality where the rich just keep accumulating and the wages go to zero, because after a point it will dip and there'll be some redistribution. But in the substitutes world, like you can just have capital and uh, you can produce a lot of value just keeping capital as it is and getting robots and like getting output from that. So yeah, I'll this is basically more of that. I'll skip this. Yeah, and the other important point I want to cover is like, okay, you can ask, okay, if capital is going to be the main source of income, then can't I just own stake? Like I'll just buy shares from let's say some FANG or like AI company, and and like that will give me some output, right? But the issue is that we are seeing a lot of the new companies, they start, at least in their high growth phase, they start out private. Like if you want to now invest in, let's say, OpenAI or Perplexity, unless you put I think like $10,000 or something, you need uh, you need to like be in the circles. Like you need to be like a sultan of Oman or something, like to actually get into these deals. So what you're seeing is like a lot of, even though capital um, like it's getting hard for people to own a stake in the return on capital. It's starting to get more exclusive, and that is only going to like widen the gap, because like if it gets like it seems like if things get more substitutable, then the return on, like, small differences start exploding, because uh, you just have this positive feedback loop, right? Like you accumulate a bit of capital and then you use it to hire, let's say, better investors, better access to better private returns, and that gets you like more capital. So you go into those positive feedback loops. Yeah, and this is the compounding, and I've covered it. Yeah, so this is the two worlds that we can. What would it mean in both the worlds? If complements dominate, then wages remain central. Like, and but it's not clear like which domains complements dominate. So complements is like, let's say, to be a software engineer, like, do you really need uh, a human to operate Cloud Code or Codex for it to actually produce value, or can you just leave Cloud Code and get things done? Because it can also be the case that even though the number of humans reduce, but instead of, let's say, employing 100 people, I employ 10, but then those 10 earn so much high. So that could also happen where it's like, let's say, singers or musicians, right? Like, yeah, even though there are like thousands of singers, we only listen to the top 10 and they earn so much. So on average, they might skew the results. So in that case, then we can say that it's a complement thing where, yeah, like even though AI automates a lot of stuff, you still need some humans as bottlenecks to unlock a lot of value. But if it's substitute, then it's all is going to matter is just capital. Like if you just have capital and you use it to produce things, then that is going to give you more returns than like you using your labor. So these are signs to watch, which is,
You'll be sharing the slide.
yeah. Yeah, there's like a lot. Closing takeaway. So so the key bottlenecks, do they become substitutes? That is the crux that we need to look out for. Like right now, what seems like a complement, do they become substitutes? Where you can, like, are you a lemon or a lemon concentrate? Like, how much of lemon versus lemon concentrate can some task be? That is the crux of the argument. And if you are in a substitution world, then you should accumulate more capital and not waste it away. Like because even saving a little.
Real life, what will accumulating capital mean in this
So yeah, I mean, you have it in either like land or stocks, equity, like yeah, and it also matters what type of capital, right? Like if you own, let's say, thousands of GPUs or some energy company, which is going to be used for AI, that has more value than some farmland in some random place. So it also matters, is your capital allocated to the supply chain of the AI like production, because that would have like higher return on investment. So yeah, these are like other links. I made a interactive explainer which it had like more graphs and things you can look into, and then there's the slides on this GitHub repo, and that's it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Sort of like some criticism.
Yeah.
Something are coming to my mind right now.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it later. I want to start wrapping it up and yeah. So,
But any quick questions that
yeah.
someone has? Like?
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Okay, also. Yeah. We have to because Lukman also wanted to say a couple of things.
Okay. Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah, we can have an informal chat downstairs.
Downstairs, right?
Yeah, downstairs
we can sit.
But now look.
Lukman, just quickly share what you want to share.
It would be ideal to have a spreadsheet, but it is matrix. Let's take your pilot and as an example. So on this side,
Pilot names and aggregations.
yes. So that on a 2x2 matrix, here you've got aggressive, non-aggressive. Here you've got binary games and non-binary games.
Yeah.
So the way that I'm picturing today's talk is that we should probably look at evidence and things like that on this matrix. While and what type of evidence is fitting there. So if we have evidence for violent behavior and violent games, it fits in this bucket. And in that particular example had as distinct to people who do not play. So that comes to people who do not play violent games and who do not have aggressive behavior. But we don't have evidence of people on this side of the matrix who play but do not have aggressive behavior. So that for me breaks down it clearly and like picturizes it or gets it. I don't know if that's the right way to look at this.
I've never thought about it like that, so I'll have to think about it.
What?
So,
Did I miss something? I didn't get what the aggressive and violent.
yeah.
So it's a 2x2 matrix, right?
Yeah, but what is it referring? It's something you told before.
Basically, one question that was there.
Oh, in the okay. So I missed
Yeah,
something.
that was basically like violent
Okay.
playing violent games causes violent
Okay.
behavior. And
Okay.
so that
On an average,
That
kids who play
violent games.
based on a 3-hour basis become fighters.
But there can also be confounding effects, right? Like,
Yeah, there can be
People
confounding, all
who-
kinds of problems are there, but he's specifically bringing up 2x2 matrix where he's saying that in these 4 different boxes, evidence can exist for all these 4 different categories, right? And if it's missing for one of those categories, then the evidence is not doing a good job, right? Something like that.
Yes, probably that was a better way to visualize that.
But I'll have to sit with you and see for each example
Yes.
whether that works or not.
And for me, it was easier to organize more probably the
Or the non
data text.
Yeah.
That's what we want. So it's a good text.
no,
Yes,
I want to give that. There's a lot of economics that's still confusing to me.
Come and sit with you.
Then I have a lot of questions. I would like seriously.
We'll go down.
Yeah.
We have to move.